Well, that was interesting. That was interesting. Happy Thursday. How's it going? How is everyone today? You guys have a great couple of weeks. I know that April was busy for me. It was actually quite insane. It was so many things that needed to get taken care of in terms of work, just stuff around the house and life and just in general. Just it was a busy month, so I wasn't able to keep up with the pace of the live streams, with the pace of just everything in general. So things had to go on pause for a few minutes, but I've been kind of plotting and planning and thinking what the next few videos are going to be. I kind of put out a call out on my main channel as to what you guys would like to see next in terms of the overall flow. So Roger, hello. Right there. Let's see. Roger, hello. Happy Thursday to you. It's probably a little bit late. Hopefully not too late. Martin, hello. Happy Thursday to you as well. Avars, how's it going? All right. How you guys doing? You guys having some fun times? Yeah. So everything that I want to talk about today is about very specifically about unreleased work. And what does that mean? What does that mean? That means all the work. Now, I want you guys to go back in your own creative endeavors, your own things that you've started in the past. And how many of those things have you started, worked on a little bit, and then it never saw the light of day? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. I want to talk about that idea of how much creative work actually gets done, but never sees the light of day. And it's a very interesting space because personally, now I'm not talking about I'm not talking about like ideas where you're doing ideation where you write down an idea and it's like, oh no, it's like move on to the next one, and then you have a whole bunch of different ideas, little things, and it just never goes past it never gets to the development stage and never gets past the idea stage. So Martin, you're asking if personal projects and professional projects, or projects that you collaborated on, or projects that just anything that really comes down to all creative works. I made this little site to help me kind of figure out and guide what I wanted to say. So all creative work that not only you and I have worked on, but like any kind of videos, books, music, stories, photos, any creative venture that has started but never got finished. So more than just the ideation, more than just the like, oh, that would be a cool idea. No, I'm talking about where it's like time was there to develop the idea. Teams were put into place. So again, yeah, a little bit more than just the ideation. So the ideas, like specifically what I'm talking about is that where others were brought in, there was a budget, there was a meeting, everything started to get into development, and then even beyond development, it goes so far as to like, wow, this is like, it's all going, everything is approved, you're chugging along, everything's feeling great, and then boop, it just stops and it's gone. What happens to all that work? That's really the kind of question that I want to talk about. And like, what are the benefits of it? How do you feel about those kind of things? Because I know I have my personal feelings about it. And I know usually what happens to a lot of that stuff. And it's like having all these great ideas and just not going anywhere. So there's an interesting thing that happens with that, because that is its own creative space. Ideas that have never seen the light of day. Like, just imagine how many, because I know that you guys are mentioning it right now. Like, how many projects do you think worldwide have gotten so far, and people are like working on it, and like this could be like films, this could be anything, and then just it never materializes and is never seen by anybody. So like it's one of those things where I always kind of have this, like, these kind of thought experiments in my own head. Like, what happens to all that? Does it just get literally stored on a hard drive, especially like nowadays? Does it get stored on a hard drive, and then the hard drive just, kind of breaks down over time, and then it just disappears? It's like gone. Like that whole idea, like all that energy, all that creative energy that was put towards that is just gone. And I'm pretty sure there were some really great ideas that fell in this weird oblivion state where they were never to be resurrected again. Jake, hello. And I believe that most work never sees the light of day. I tend to agree with you because of my own personal experience. I have worked on so many pitches. Literally, I've worked on films, commercials, TV shows, large automotive, live events, car commercials, and just everything, pharmaceutical stuff. Just it, you name it. I've done a project pitch for it. I've done development for it. I've spent months working on these kind of projects, and they're all there. They're all sitting on my hard drive, but like there's nothing I can do with it. I can't share it with anyone. I can't do anything with it. I can't, kind of even use it to an extent. And I want to get into that because there is a benefit to all this stuff. So happens to me all the time with software development projects. Build some small test app and never push it to the App Store. Yeah, exactly. It's still in that exact same vein where I've worked on several apps and projects that were more in the development stage, and just never went forward with it. So, like, I remember specifically. There were some pretty big projects that I worked on. There's one in particular. It was for a theme park, and we spent about 8 months developing it, and they wanted to show a whole 3D render of the entire park, like the entire park, all the pathways, all the trees, all the rides, all the insides of all the buildings, all the pavilions, the food courts, like everything, like the entire lot of land. We built everything for it. We built every single piece in 3D. We had people walking around, animated, people on the roller coasters. Like you name a roller coaster, it was in this place. This place was huge, and I can't get into the details, but there was a point where we were literally, like, we loved it, and it looked fantastic. It looked great. Everyone, like, all the clients were happy. Everyone was happy. Like, it was looking fantastic. And we got to the point, it was massive. There was about 16 people working on it. There was animators. There was like all the stuff that we had to build. We literally had to build from scratch. And it was all to kind of announce this new theme park that was coming. And on the back end, they were starting to build this theme park. Like think like Disneyland kind of epicness in terms of how big this thing was. Like they had a Fast and Furious kind of ride where it was all themed around that kind of stuff. Like it was massive. Like it was a massive project. Absolutely. And we spent about 8 months doing this thing, working on it, developing it, working. And it was a great project. We're all happy with it. We got to the point where we were about 95% done. We hit the render. We were rendering the final rendered high quality version of it. Like all the frames. There was one step beyond that where we just had to composite all the stuff and make sure it was all in and then render out the final pass. So all the 3D animation was being rendered on a render farm. Like we built a render farm for it. Like that's how big this whole project was. And we were rendering it. Monday morning came and we get an email saying the project has been canceled. And we're like the animation project? And they're like, no, the entire theme park is scrapped, like just done. The client walked away. They couldn't secure the remaining funding for it, or they couldn't get approval to build on the land. It was something, I don't know what the details were because that was 2 steps out of my communication. I was just hired to do the animation for it. And so the client was like, we don't want to pay for anything. So we're literally done the project, about to deliver 1 day later, send off our final invoice for it. Like we got paid kind of along the way, but there was still about 60% of the budget that was not fulfilled. And because my client wasn't going to get paid, because their client wasn't going to get paid, because they weren't going to get paid. And it was just like this whole snowball effect where there was this year's worth of work, not only by me and my team, but everyone that was working on designing the actual rides, all the people that were designing the entire experience for the thing. And it was just crazy how it just stopped and it went away. And it took us another 2 years to finally get the money and get paid for that. And it was just like we had to prove that we were finishing. It was nutty. But that's a whole nother story. That like I'm gonna save that for a talk about how to get paid. That'll be a whole nother discussion. So make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed yet to the Livestream channel. I know that you guys are all subscribed to my main channel because these are familiar faces. So yeah, that I would say that was it was a kick in the nuts for sure. But it wasn't the first time that a full project of such a scope, because I started working on a couple films where I would do visual effects for that. It just the project would go away, so we were already in like designings, and like it's a constant reality in this. It's a constant. Oh, hold on. It's a constant reality in the creative industry. Well, not necessarily creative industry, because there's so many projects that, like even personally, where it's like we had this plan to do something in the backyard and we didn't do it, but we planned for it, we did it, and like we have all the designs for what we wanted to do, and then we just went a whole nother direction. So there's that whole aspect of it as well, where you can be working on something and then the client just decides to go in a different direction, or you have to do 2 or 3 pitches, so you put in the work, but they only choose one. But what happens to those other 2? Like that kind of stuff fascinates me, because there's so much creative energy that goes into every single project, and every time you need to stop and restart, there's that whole ramp up, and you have to start again, which is okay, because we talked about that. Excuse me. We talked about that in a previous live stream about starting again. The sheer amount of work that I know that I've done that the public has never seen, that beyond a small group of people, it's staggering. And like I have hard drive after hard drive of just ideas and projects that are 10, 15, 20, 30, 90% done, and just they don't go out there. So I always find that to be very, very interesting in this space. So how do artists feel about that? How do artists feel about having to put in all this effort, all this work into a project, and then have it go away? Now, like Martin, the question that he asked earlier is, even personal projects have that kind of thing, because I know I've started a whole bunch of personal projects. I've short stories, I've started books, I've started short films, I started scripts. I have all these things where I just get to a point where if I don't finish it within a certain amount of time, I take a break, and then I walk away from it, and then I'm different when I go back to it, and it's no longer the same idea that I was having at the time. So even those are interesting things, interesting places to be. Phil, hello. Baby is still sleeping. Nice. So I want to stop by and drop a like. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is fantastic. Hey, it's that one guy. That's right. Pointing up to Tom. There you go. Hey, Tom, how's it going? Saw you lurking at Peter's live stream. It's nice to see him doing live streams too. So how do artists feel? How do I feel? How do you guys feel? How do you guys feel when you have a project that is going on, that is started, that you're actually excited about, and then it just stops? How do you guys feel about that? What is the mindset that you kind of go through? Because I know that when I get those kind of situations, initially it was kind of like, oh man, like there's that moment where you're just like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that the idea that this whole thing is now kind of lost, like that idea. But I actually like it because of the experience that I've gained from having it happen so many times, is that depending on how far along you are in that project, or depending on what the project was for, there's always another use case that idea can come back. Because if there's a good idea that is baked into it. And you know how you get, like, when you start talking with a friend or with a creative friend, and you start talking about ideas and something like that, and then you just have this spark of like energy that goes in one direction, and it's like you follow it because that's where the creative idea leads, and it's just one kind of jump after another. And I use the ideas that never saw the light of day as the jumping off points, because I look back at some of those pitch decks that we've done, and I look at the process. I look at the idea behind the idea. What was the initial spark that made that idea good? And how can that be maybe repurposed? Like, it could be as simple as the color palette that we use from one that worked so well, but I know that it will work in another project. It could be something as the way the font and the typography was laid out, or the way that the callouts were being used, or the type of camera move that, you know, I haven't seen before, or just the overall arc of a story that was never used. Like, it's still a good story. So like sometimes but you want to have that. So I know that there's always this excitement where it's like, well, first there's that like disappointment, but then you get to this point where it's like, well, this is an idea that I can bank. And that's what I like about unreleased work, because depending on the circumstance, if it's not owned by the company that hired you, if it's not owned by that company, because there's some NDAs where it's like there's nothing you can do with it, you can't show it, it's theirs, they own everything, it's all their intellectual property. But there are projects where you're on board and that's never part of the agreement and never gets to that point, where I know if I do pitches that I explicitly state that this is a pitch that I'm doing for the company, but they don't own it until we get hired to do it. So there's a lot of pitches that I've then repurposed because it was such a solid pitch. It wasn't right for that company, but there was another opportunity that would come down later. And I love banking those ideas. It's like having, it's the same way that comedians work, where they bank all these jokes and they know that they're going to work in a certain order, and then they just refine them over time. And when an idea sits for a little bit longer, you have that opportunity to make it even better later down the road, because there's always refinement. There's no such thing as there's no project is ever done. It's just definitely on hold. Like I can't remember the saying, but like there's no such thing as perfect, just done. Or the next one. Hold on a sec. So Jake says, all of the unseen work burns me out at first. Then I realized I had to learn a few skills from the project that I'm sure they'll use for the future work. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much times that I've had to do research and figure out how to do a certain process. And that process, learning alone, is so invaluable that I know I can use it later. And I've learned so many different applications and like 3D applications, editing, and like all this stuff because of things that I researched for other projects that never saw the light of day. So I was paid to develop features, which was thrown away and rebuilt just because of bad planning on the beginning of the project. I'm fine with it as long as I'm paid for. So you as long as you're paid for the work, absolutely. And I'm the same way. But like there's that one step back where you're in the pitch process, and that's where you don't get paid for it, but you get to keep the idea. Because there's many times where I know I'm pitching against like 2 other companies, and when my pitch is either not chosen or because the budget fell through or whatnot, then that idea is mine. I get to retain that idea and use it in the future. So there's nothing any company can say, or there's nothing anyone can say that they're able to keep that work. Now, I've had instances where I would pitch for a job, not get it, and then see the final work, the final product as my pitch. And it blows me away. It's that whole thing where it's like, well, they didn't like my price, so they chose to go with someone else. And that's some shady ass business kind of work there. So there's a couple avenues you can do, but it's a long stretch to try to pursue that. It'll usually cost more than, and I think a lot of companies know this. So Martin says, I feel very excited when it starts, but the air can go out of me when it stops. Yes, the ideas can still be used for another project. Yep. So part of the project and skills, what you learned on the project can be reused on the next one. And yeah, so absolutely, it's not, none of it is lost, especially because we're able to skill stack, because it's usually within what we're capable of doing. It's what we're good at, and we just add to our resume of skills that we're able to do. So it could be a process, it could be an application, it could be so many different things. So kind of touched on this briefly, but so what happens to the work? A lot of it ends up on hard drives. A lot of it ends up just disappearing from the eye of the public. But there are instances, and I saw this the other day, where some artists, this artist in particular on Reddit, they chose to just give their work away. They chose to let it go. The whole soundtrack that they made for a game that never got developed, never got finished, just released all the music. And I've seen this so many times where artists will do this kind of thing. And I think this is where YouTube kind of thrives, where when you're a crew of one and you're making your own videos and you're making your own projects, it's completely up to you if you want to release it or not. Like, how many of you have actually made full-on ideas of videos, maybe even filmed some of it, and just kind of went, no, I don't want to release it? But there are a lot of stories online where people had that idea, were about to upload it, didn't upload it, and then decided that they were going to upload it. They just went with it. And then they turn into Matt Davella, where he's 3 million plus subs because he decided to post that one thing that he didn't think he was going to. So there's a lot of stories like that. So okay, I spoke about the theme park project. There's actually two other big projects that I worked on that weren't as intense as the theme park project. There's a Stephen Hawking project that we were part of when I was working in holograms, and he had this whole multi-city tour, lecture tour kind of planned, and they did one city, and then a few months later he passed away. And the project was so, like, I was very proud of the project. Again, it was a huge project. Lots of people worked on it, but this is one of those circumstances where the project was essentially done. It was in the public, but it didn't fulfill the entire scope of what the project was. And so that's that gray area where, yes, technically it was released, but it was released to only one show. And I think there was only like 200 people at that one because it was the test show, but there was press. So they did kind of talk about it. And it was one of those shows where I was looking forward to it because of how much great work went into the entire thing. And that's where I want to talk about this one thing in particular. So on my shelf, I have a whole bunch of little keepsakes and memory things, and hello, and there we go. Music's there. So I want to talk about one thing specifically. So this is a 20-pound note. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's kind of blurred out. There we go. Blown out. Whatever. All good. Give me 1 second. Oops. There we go. Is that a little bit better? So yeah, this is a 20-pound note from one of my trips to Cambridge, where I got to meet Professor Hawking, got to spend time with him, got to ask him questions, got to direct Stephen Hawking for his hologram. Like he did his whole lecture live in front of us while we beamed it across the world. And we were supposed to do that 20 separate times. So this is one of those moments where just have that 20 pounds with me. That reminds me of that trip. I actually got to go twice because first time was just to meet and greet, and then the other time was this. So that's one of the things that is always on my shelf back there. I have a whole bunch of stuff. So, and I have the Falcon right there, or the new Captain America, if you guys have seen it. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched any of that. So there is one other project, and I may save this for another live stream. I may save this for when I get 10K subscribers and I go onto and I do a live stream on my main channel. But it's this project. And also hologram, also pretty far along in terms of completion, and also has never seen the light of day. And I have so many stories from this. One where we almost burnt down a studio that we were filming at, just meeting some people that are involved and just talking. It was nuttiness. Like this one was fantastic, but I'm gonna save that story for another day. And maybe a clip or two, not of the final product because I can't show that, but maybe some behind the scenes of the shoot. You see how we were doing and what we were doing. Anyways, so again, like the specifics of the benefits of, kind of touched on this already, but there are huge benefits because even with work that is never released, there's always an opportunity to hone your skills. There's always an opportunity to learn something new. There's always an opportunity to try a different medium, to connect with different artists or people that are working on it, to expand your network, to work with people that you wouldn't have been in the same room with beforehand. You wouldn't have had those conversations. And I've met so many people just from the sheer fact that I was recommended and my name was attached to work on a certain project, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in a room with Tony Robbins and he's talking about, you know, his latest project that he wants to do, and that is actually a project that did get done. But like, just giving you an example of so many things that have happened and like the opportunities that arise just by saying yes. And this is one of those things where I kind of talked about that in a previous live stream as well, like the power of saying yes. And because you never know. Well, that's not true. There's some projects that I've said no to. There's also the power of saying no, where I just know from just hearing either the idea or the budget related to the idea that this project probably won't get past the development stage and will actually fall apart. Or if they don't have the personnel that I would recommend for a certain project. So if I'm being brought on board and I'm not building the team, because there's a lot of critical thinking that needs to go into building projects that are multi-month, sometimes multi-year projects that will take research, a lot of development, a lot of understanding of who the target is, the target audience. And if those kind of things don't happen, if those cues aren't there, then just from experience, I know that like, oh no, I'm going to pass on this one. And it's kind of similar with YouTube, where it's like, you know, the idea, if it's going to fit on your channel, you know, if the idea is going to kind of resonate with your established audience, but also have the potential to bring in a new audience if it gets out there. So after 50 videos, you get that kind of sense of like, yeah, I have a feeling that this video is going to perform well, or it's not. And like, I'm not talking like hundreds of thousands of views. I'm talking like within the average of your channel at that time, because the bigger the channel is, the more instant viewers that a video can get. So, and that's the last slide. Hold on a second. Let me just, here we go. So would you guys, question for you, would you guys release work that was part of a project that was unfinished, and would you release the assets for it? Because there's so many sites, like there's so many stock sites, like not Fiverr, but like there's Free Picks, there's all these stock footage sites, there's these website templates. Would you release your work and sell it as your, as like stock versions, like you know what I'm saying? So Tom says that he deleted a video before release last summer, and I hated that feeling. Oh no. Well, did you post it back up? Hopefully you didn't delete the entire project. But yeah. So there's so many, like the reason this all came up is because I was recently kind of cleaning up and archiving my hard drives. I'm using a new app called Neo Finder, and it just kind of archives and does an index of all your hard drives. And it's a great little tool that I should have been using a long time ago, instead of just writing it on a, like the name and kind of what's on the hard drive. But I was going through and I just realized how much work, like going back a decade of work and more, because there's a whole bunch of hard drives that don't even boot up anymore. And I'm like, yeah, what's on there is probably not that important. So Jake, only if it's worth the time it takes to list the footage, though many of the platforms do most of the work. So maybe. Yeah. There's also a service called Blackbox, where like for blackbox.global, where you could actually post it to their site, and then they'll be the aggregator, and they'll send it to all these other stock sites. So if you guys have hard drives of footage, that may be something that you can look into, where you can post it there. And actually, I think they have collaborators that you can join up with that will then, they could also edit or color grade the footage, or even kind of tag it if you don't want to do that kind of stuff. So, and then you kind of share the sales with those people. They take a percentage. So it's just other editors that want to do contribute to that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was cleaning up all my hard drives, and that's the kind of thought, like the thought of all this unreleased work that will never see the light of day. And it also got me thinking about all those experiences, all those, I don't want to say lost opportunities, because they weren't. Like, I know that there's the upside of a project that goes live is vastly more important, because people actually see it, then they kind of trace it back to you if when they find out, like, oh, who worked on this. But how many projects that could have had those opportunities just kind of went away. So the video never got posted, but I did use some of the thumbnail ideas in other videos. Well, great. Oh, my wife has been asking for you to do another update tutorial on how you do your thumbnails. She loves your thumbnails, by the way. So, and I said, well, it's simple. You just do it like this. Yeah, but how does he do it? So if you can do another thumbnail, how you make your thumbnails now versus the original one that you posted, you have a fan for life. So Martin says, I could release and sell one of my stock that aren't that high level art that I aim for. Yeah. If you have, every time you click the shutter and you capture something, either video or photo, there's opportunities for that to be used one way or another. And it's not something that I pursued too much. I've posted stock in the past before, when iStock was kind of the main player, iStock photo. But as soon as like so many players came in, it was just like it. I didn't want to start competing and doing that kind of stuff, especially having other priorities and other stuff that I was doing. But now it's my focus is so much on YouTube that I sat on YouTube was one of those avenues where it was unreleased work for me, because I had all these ideas and they started to stack up in terms of like, I want to make a video about this. I want to make a video about this. I want to make a video about this. And for about a year, those ideas kept stacking up. And I knew that if I didn't start, it would end up in a hard drive in that void of ideas forgotten. So it was important for me to follow through on that. Plan, do, follow through is the kind of mantra that I have as my own personal thing, where it's like, if I plan it, then I'm going to do it and I'm going to follow through with it. Plan, do, follow through. That was actually one of the first names of my YouTube channel before I just settled on my name, because I kind of saw the wave of everyone changing to their name instead of a branded channel name. And I thought that would be a lot easier to follow through on kind of any idea and really quickly be able to flow with what is working best for the audience that is growing with me at the time. Now, I had no idea that I would surpass 8,000 subscribers. Like even the previous YouTube channel that I had didn't have this many, nor did it have this many people that are actually as engaged. So I'm quite excited about that. I'm quite excited, and it makes me look forward to keep making videos. And I actually started to feel bad that I haven't been able to post in April as much as I wasn't able to keep up with my 1 a week schedule. I had one recorded. It hasn't been edited yet. I'm going to record. The plan is to record a few more this weekend and start to get back on the weekly schedule. Just kind of fell back. I had a couple in the pocket, but wasn't enough to follow through on April. So right now the ideas, and if you guys haven't seen the post, my community post in the on YouTube, I make sure you go and vote on which video idea you would like. One is about the Shure SM7B versus this mic, and which one I recommend for majority of people that are just kind of getting started in with audio, and why I like this one over the other one, even though the other one sounds great. So I'm going to do a whole comparison about it and why this one is the one that I prefer. The other one is Final Cut Pro and the magic of the magic timeline. So that's going to be another one. Then I'm going to do how to light in small spaces with large lights. That is going to be, I'm going to kind of share all the tricks that I've learned over the years, how to specifically how it came from how to film interviews in people's offices, but their offices were tiny. So how to get big lights or a big feeling light in that space and still make it look nice and soft and diffused and have that feeling like it's a big window light, even though there was no window or space, and still have a nice blurry background behind them without going, ultra wide, because, shooting on certain lenses makes people's faces look better, and understanding what lens will work best for a person's what lens looks best for a person's face, and how the lighting can affect the way how pleasant they look. And especially if you're doing an interview where everything is meant to make the audience feel that they can trust this brand or this company, you want to have the lighting work in that space. So you can't just use a 16 mil on everything and go like, "Hey, it looks fantastic." No, because the 16 mil will distort faces when you use it inappropriately. Like for instance, this room right here. So I'm using that technique, that lighting technique in this room. Right now, this room from here to that back corner, I would say is about 11 feet. So this is a tiny space, and I'm shooting this on a 24. So it's not an ultra wide lens, but if you want to get a little bit wider, you still want a lot of light on the subject, but not necessarily on the entire background. But if I was to use a huge light dome, well, I'd probably be somewhere back here, and the camera framing would just feel ridiculous. So that's probably the next one. That's the one that's winning right now. So I think that's the one I'm going to go for. The other topic was, what was the other topic? Right, how to make your voice cut through the mix in dialogue. So this is kind of post-production stuff, tricks that I've learned through not necessarily post-production people, but through live event audio mixers. And I just kind of transplanted that idea into my post-production workflow, and then kind of realized and found that most mixers do that kind of same technique anyways, but mine is like literally the simplest form of that, where you don't need to know too much about audio and audio engineering and audio mixing. There's just certain cues you need to hit and certain frequencies to make the voice, because the voice sits in a very, very narrow frequency range, where you just need to make sure that the music doesn't interfere with that. It's like having two contrasting colors. It's like building contrast in audio. That's literally the whole topic of the video. It's just building audio contrast. Because otherwise, if you have the same color of skin and the same color on the background, there's no contrast, and everything kind of gets muddled, and you don't have that. That's why orange and teal is such a popular contrast when it comes to video. And it's universal, and it's one of those things that works. So if it's something that's easily repeatable and frictionless, which is what we talked about last week in the live stream, a frictionless workflow. That's always what we're trying to get to. And all these are all video ideas that will be coming. So I'm going to do them, but I think I'm going to start with the light one. Then I'll go with the cut through the mix, and then I'm going to see as they go. I'm also going to do a follow-up on the iMac M1. And I'm not going to talk about the specs or who it's for or whatnot, because I kind of covered that. Like, my messaging has been consistent on who I feel the M1 Macs are for, and where they work really, really well. And it's a solid little machine. I'm actually using it right now. But I'm going to talk about the M1 Mac, M1 iMac, and specifically why Apple chose all the different colors. Because majority of people, they have their monitor up against the wall. So why have color options on a piece of tech that majority of people won't ever see? So it's an interesting discussion, and I actually had firsthand experience with why they did it and who they're targeting that product for. And it's ingenious. It's like Apple's just they're pulling from their own playbook, which is it works, and why not use it? And they're recycling their own ideas. They're stealing from themselves. Oh, so next week's live stream, I want to talk about. Let me know if you guys would be interested in this. I want to talk about stealing or inspiration, and as an artist, like where's the line, and what does it actually, where's that balance, and is it okay, and when is it okay, and can you do it, and can you steal from yourself? Is that a thing? So that's kind of the topic for next week that I want to discuss about stealing in the creative industry, and overall just stealing ideas or being inspired, because I have my own views on that specifically. Partially true, yes. I don't think they want it on everyone's kitchens. Well, I I would be lying if they if they didn't want everyone to buy one and then buy one of everything else that they had and then replace it every 3 years. So yeah, Jake, that's partially true. We have a winner. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And the whole video is going to be kind of a roundup of how they took 20 years ago in 2001 when they released the original colored iMac. It was in every office space, every open concept office, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be exactly right. They're going to be in. I'm pretty sure they meant to release it when they were releasing the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini. I'm almost certain that they were ready to release it then, but because of the pandemic, they chose not to, because this is meant to go in office buildings. This is meant to be at the front desk or in open spaces where word processing and web surfing and Zoom calls is the norm. And they know that they're going to sell 5 to 10 for every small business that uses a Mac, because it's time to update it, and having that color is a psychological thing. And it worked beautifully when they did it in 2001 with the original iMac, the bulb, colorful iMac. So it's definitely something that they're just pulling from their original playbook. These aren't meant to be anything more than that. So all the people that are buying all the iMacs now that have already bought the MacBook Pros and Mac Minis and stuff like that, like they're buying it to, like all the YouTubers that you've seen, they're buying it to make videos about it, which is fine. That's what they need to do. I bought the iMac because I thought it would be perfect for the use case that I was going to be. And the only thing is I should have got the 16 gigabyte right off the bat, just because there are those use cases that if I wanted to use it, and the more research I did into it, it just made more sense for me. But it's a great machine. So if you guys definitely are thinking about it, I would recommend it. It's a great little product. So yeah, stealing ideas and style of performances. Yeah, that's it's one of those things where it's hard. Like, we as creatives, we want to always be creating something new. There's always that pressure, and this is where it'll lead in from this talk into the next talk, where we all have these banks of ideas, and then we steal from ourselves. Do we steal from ourselves? I don't know. How does that work? How does stealing from yourself work? Can you steal from yourself? If you take from one client into another, like that's the gray area where I've done it so many times, where it's just like, it was my idea originally. I'm just going to move forward. And it actually gets very specific. There's whole conversations that I've had with people about this, where we'll talk about that next week. So stealing or inspired, that's what the talk will be next week. So, question for you guys. Do you have unreleased work that you want to release? Is there work that you've been sitting on that maybe you started a while back, that maybe you thought was a good idea, but then backed away from it? Like Tom said, he deleted that video and he regretted it. Is there something that you guys are sitting on that is an idea that you know will be good, and you just have to go and do it? I know I do. I know that I have I have a whole notebook of ideas. Do I have it anywhere close? Somewhere. I have a whole bank of ideas that I just keep writing down. Like, there's moments where I'm just sitting there, now it's just like this. Like, now it's just like I type into my phone. Like, I store everything. And if there is an idea that you guys are holding on to, if there is something that you know you've started and you had that feeling like this is going to be good, like, and it could be personal, I'm actually talking about personal work. I'm talking about unreleased personal work, because the client stuff, that's a whole nother thing. But if there is a client piece of work that it didn't get released, but you know it's a good idea, can you go and do it? But if you do have a piece of unreleased work that you haven't followed through on, well, you've done the planning, so you've planned. Now you got to do, and you got to follow through. And this is me speaking to you, but also reminding myself that I need to follow through on a lot of stuff that I've started, that I can't say I promised myself, but I know that it'll be worth it, because there's projects that you know instantly these are going to work and you get excited and you can't wait to finish it. But there are important times that you need to go back and revisit those good ideas and follow through on them. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you guys for hanging out with me on this Thursday. I look forward to seeing you in my next video, and definitely on the next live stream. I want to do a group chat. I'm going to try to do a Clubhouse next week at the same time. So if you guys are interested in that, you can listen in or you can join in. I'm going to put all the details into the description or into the call out when I do it next week. I'll also make sure that we have access to it. But if you do come prepared. It will be recorded. But yeah, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on some of these. If it's not next week, then it'll definitely be the following week. I just got to make sure that the tech all works, that I can get it in here while I still hear you guys. So I think that would be fun. I would actually enjoy that. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, give this video a big thumbs up. I will talk to you soon. You guys have been awesome. Bye for now. Oh, wrong one. I'll see you guys later.